Hello, beautiful friends. Today we get to talk about and go through how it is that we've learned to connect with other people. How our belief systems and the way that we were raised has created the way that we perceive situation and the way that we put judgments on others, which in turn shows us different ways in how we've learned to connect and have relationships with other people. So now I'm diving into chapter 6 of my book, Blueprint to the Heart Sovereign Healing Journey. You can grab your copy at Amazon. The link will be in the description box below. If you're on this journey and you're wanting to learn how to be happy, live in fulfillment, and to really be in contact with what your true heart is, that will involve looking at your relationship and how you've learned to relate to people up until this point. How we've learned to relate to people is solely based on the experiences of our programming beliefs, right? Our judgments, our biases, and any of the boxes that we have put people in is solely because of experiences or other people's experiences projected onto us that shape the way that we view another. So, all of these formative relationships and connections within our childhood, such as siblings, any caretaker, any authority figures, such as I think of priest or clergy people, of course, law enforcement, or teachers. Teachers are such a huge formative role model within our upbringing. When we're looking at how we relate to others and in ways which we have dishonored ourselves in order to be a part of and to feel included in, is how we have learned to connect to people. How we relate to anything is because of past experiences or other people's past experiences. And I'm here to guide us through an awareness of what those biases are and how other people can have different perceptions based on their own experiences. So, a little bit about me and my upbringing. I was an only child. My mom got remarried when I was 10, and therefore, I then had a stepsister, which I rarely saw, like every other weekend for 2 nights. And being an only child for the most formative and developmental years of my life, I never honestly connected with a lot of kids my age. We moved every year, sometimes twice a year. And I never really got to have those great childhood friendships that people typically get to experience. My relationships were more so with adults. They were more so with my mom's friends and participating or being a part of the adult scene. So what I saw and grew up with was a lot of adult themes, very inappropriate for a child. For me, growing up, I didn't really know what siblings, like that interaction, like what that meant or what that is, or even like how to truly interact with kids my age. I always felt very shy and I always felt an outcast because I didn't have those interactions. Then my mom actually wound up getting pregnant when I was 14, and I have two brothers that are 14 and 16 years younger than me. And as I began to really uncover my story and why my experiences are so different than the other people's, and how my relationships have really formed the way and that I see the world, and how I also see relationships. Relationships form how we see relationships. And because of biases and hurt that we have experienced, that's how the armor is the judgment. The armor are the biases of the past experiences. And part of opening up our heart to having new and different experiences that are truly in alignment it with an ease, a flow relationship versus a dis-ease and trying to fit into a mold of what society seems as relationship. For me, it's really been about learning the ways in which I have kept my fears, my insecurities, my self-worth and self-love or lack of, how I've used those or how they have been barriers to build authentic relationships. That a lot of people see that human connection that we need it to live. And in a lot of ways, sure, I can agree with that. But I also see that we have become so reliant on connection that a lot of the connections are so shallow that we don't actually know what a true relationship is with ourselves and therefore not able to authentically connect with others at that intimate level. The aims is to really begin to understand how our perceptions of people and how other people's perceptions form how we connect with others. Society has created this whole self development, personal development, and the way to healing has really become very cookie cutter, right? And it's just not possible. It's not possible because that is for mass production. Self discovery, self help has become a mass produced type of theme where it tries to create something that is can largely adapt to the masses. And it's not true because when I think of all of us have our own unique experiences with our own unique people that help continue to form and shape the way that we perceive the world. Each of us need our own unique unbecoming in order to authentically connect and recreate a new relationship to ourselves and to others. When I think of how many different people have experienced so many different things at so many different times of their life with so many other different players, that all is a part of shaping who we see and who we connect to together. I think of within family infrastructures, the first child that is born experiences the parent very differently than, say, the second child, right? Like my kids, one of them got a completely different version of me. My firstborn, he received a completely different, put together, uptight, and very wanting to keep things just version of myself. I was quite high anxiety. And my daughter, got more of the emotionally checked out version of myself. And when I think of these two things, now granted, they grew up in similar circumstances, right? The same dad, the same mom, but because of what I was experiencing at the time, that highly affected the way that they experience me. Now, how they interact with each other, siblings are such a huge relationship that I think that we don't necessarily think about when we're looking to the healing aspects. Do we actually look at like how has our siblings really shaped the way that we view each other? If anybody were to know you better than like your parents, it would be your siblings, right? Because you experience those home dynamics at the same time, but you get to really know each other at the more intimate level. So I think of so many different people that, okay, so again, my grandma was the baby of 12 children on a farm. So who really took care of her were like her siblings and her older sisters. And a lot of how she learned to see the world was through the eyes of her siblings. Now I look at my kids and how they interact with each other and, you know, what is so easily seen as teasing or just the typical sibling rivalry can really be quite harmful and definitely shapes the way that we see each other and see ourselves within the world. So I feel it's very important to look at our relationships with our siblings. And within this book, I have listed questions that we can ask and go through with our siblings to understand we both had the same experience, but we each perceived it differently. And we both wound up having relationships. We both perceive our relationship differently. So let's get to know that more. Let's get to become more aware of what you actually went through. Because despite you both going or all going through similar circumstances, or when children experience divorces, depending on their age and what they are personally reflecting in, it affects them differently. So, like going through those life events and asking your siblings, like, how actually did you wind up? How did you learn? How did you perceive what was going on? And what did you perceive of me? And what was it like before I was born? There's so many questions in here that you can really get to know the bigger and broader aspect of the judgments and the biases that we have with each other. And that's really the whole point of it, is to really just to uncover the beliefs and the biases that have kept us from seeing our truth. So having conversations with our siblings is having conversations with our siblings is very important and can build such a different perspective on what you perceived as well. We could just assume that people perceive the same thing when in reality they perceived it, they saw situations completely different. Next thing that I go into is then friendships. Me being someone from a poor area and someone who was exposed to adult themes early in my life, I was drawn to people and friendships that I related to. That's how we connect with each other. We connect to other people who have similar experiences. Now, I've had to really ask myself, why is it that we feel so comfortable that we connect with other people's experiences and don't necessarily want to move away from connecting to people who have had different experiences or different perspectives or opinions? And my evolving conclusion is because when we connect, our friendships typically validate our existence. They validate the way that we perceive the world. And they also confirm that what we are experiencing, it can perpetuate a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas people who don't necessarily have the same perspective or are from different walks of life, we don't know how to connect with people that we don't have those experiences with. That's completely natural. As you begin questioning your values and your beliefs and what is important to you, you noticing that your values don't necessarily align with who you're friends with anymore. What I have learned is that the more that I do, that the less I connect to people in my past, which it's not a bad thing, right? I feel that all of our connections are actually meant to mirror to us and reveal to us in ways that we have been viewing each other as the enemy, or how we have been viewing each other as competition. I remember getting into network marketing quite some time ago, and this stuck to me. You are the average of the 5 people that you hang around with most. So, like, who you hang around with is who you become. So, what that is saying is you basically adapt and form into the people you hang around with most. So, who are you without those people? And for me, that was huge because I relied so much on other people. I had to, in order to really find out who Elaine was and my values, my morals, and what I truly desired, my authentic heart desires, I needed to actually remove all of the distractions of the other to form a relationship with myself first. And this is really where a lot of my dissecting of all my friendships, relationships, and connections came into, because everybody had been influencing the way that I move in the world. And that's always been that way because our parents' friends are there influencing us and also influencing our parents and our parents' actions. We constantly intake and consume other people's perspectives and ideas when it's just that. It is their perspective and their idea, but yet we take it on and formulate the way that we think we should see the world based on that. And so this part of the chapter is really to just begin to peel back and uncover in the ways in which we have actually just formed into our circle, into our connections, into what we think that we want, what people want. And so we begin uncovering that and deprogramming by looking at the belief systems within our family infrastructure. That is why having questions with our siblings is important. Then the next we look at what were our friendships as we grew up. What friends did I gravitate towards as a child? And also, were they helpful? And what type of messages did I receive from those friendships? And what did those friendships make me feel as a child? I see a lot of that still continue to play out for me. And so then I also think of teachers. They see our kids and they see us just as much, if not more, than our parents. And we adapt to whatever our teachers tell us is right. We adapt to however they perceive the world. We adapt to their idea of what they think is right and wrong. Instead of formulating and allowing us to maybe think bigger than right and wrong, we then are disciplined and shaped into whomever the authority figure is. So, clergy or priests or whatever type of religious upbringing you may have had, and the superior within that has a huge impact on how we navigate the world as well, especially within the religious template, because they use our eternal life as a fear base, living in eternal hell, using the fear as a way to create and mold us into what is perceived as right or wrong. And I'm not saying that is good or bad. I am just bringing the awareness to the bigger structure at play here. So the next thing would be, and I think of myself again, specifically because I was raised in a poor area, people would fear the police versus seeing them as helpful. And especially if your parents, because I had babysitters that were committing illegal stuff. So the cops would come and then the babysitters would get upset with the cops because the cops are interfering. So then the parents then project like that cops are terrible or authority figures. I'm not saying is good or bad. It's simply an awareness of how the belief system was formulated and who gave us the belief system and that structure to follow. So really looking at the narratives that are formed from the connections that we had, looking at the perspective from those formative connections and looking to why we connected with those people and within those friendships. So when we are looking to really begin to build healthier or more aligned friendship, really filtering out the behaviors in which have kept us in the same types of friendship, quite important. Something that is very interesting is we tend to want to hold on to friendships. We value another person's opinion so much that when we start to drift away from people, we feel bad and therefore we continue to cling on to and hold on to a friendship that we don't necessarily feel good about anymore. We have been told that friendships are meant to be together through thick and thin. And I don't buy into that anymore because as human beings, the only constant thing that happens is evolution and change. We are constantly changing, but yet we are continuously trying to fit into the same thing. And within the realms of friendships, I feel that it is necessary to actually evolve out of, because if you change the way that you connect to other people, the way that you perceive the world will not be in alignment with everybody. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that your friendship is less important than before. It just is there to help you move into a more truer version of yourself. And clinging on to the friendships that we may have had for so many years because it's what we've had for so many years can really keep us in that perpetual state. Allowing friendships to dissolve is very okay. We will create new friendships. You will create new relationship to yourself that will allow you to actually bring in friendships that are more fulfilling and more helpful than prior versions of yourself related to. Part of the structure that we as people in society have clung to is that our friend groups go with us forever. And that's not necessarily the most helpful thing because that keeps us in the same type of thinking. Great minds think alike. I don't also trust that as well because that is perpetuating the same thing that people who don't think alike don't have great minds, right? I think that everybody has their own unique perspective on things and is here to offer a different way of seeing things. When we are seeing that we're connecting with everybody that has the same perspective and we're not really willing to open up our ideas that other people might have valuable insights and opinions, and we're closed off to finding a more authentic version of ourselves because life is about flow expansion versus restriction and rigidity. Within this chapter, building connections, there's beautiful questions and scenarios. This chapter will really help you to contemplate in ways in which you connect to others, which is essentially in relationship to everything. So when we are looking to heal, we are looking to actually heal the relationship to which we perceive people and the world that we are experiencing. I feel that this chapter, people can really close off to it, but I also feel that if we look at this from an open mind, you can see, wait, I have been perpetuating the same cycles because I haven't actually looked at how I've connected to these specific people or how I have connected to these other people. To move forward with kindness and compassion, this chapter can really help you to start examining where you have been clinging to things that are outdated for you. This will help you examine in ways that you have played into and conformed to others and help you to look at how you can start deprogramming those feelings. So I hope that you can find this guide and this chapter helpful for you. And I look forward to sharing more with you. And until next time, I'm sending an immense amount of love.